And welcome back. Now we are at the point where we're ready to introduce a walk animation for our ninja here. If you recall, currently this animation has him just throwing the shuriken, which is great. However, we don't have anything where he might run or walk here at the beginning. Now, if I were just to insert frames here, that's going to affect my animation. So I actually need to move this whole animation. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this over a little bit. So I'm just going to move it over to about frame 15 here. And now you notice that we don't have anything here at the beginning, and I don't want to have to go through and redraw my entire character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to each layer here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, go back to frame 1. I'm going to right click and choose paste in place, or Control-Shift-V. And I'm going to do that for each of my layers here, so that way they are, of course, put into the proper position. And I'm not going to worry about the weapon right now, because the weapon doesn't necessarily need to be in that first frame. So again, I'm more concerned about the ninja and the rest of the positions here versus the weapon itself. All right. And it looks like we have everything here except for the body. There we go. All right, now we have our ninja. Looks like he's ready to go. So now we can go ahead and begin to animate this. Now, I don't want him to start in this position here. I want him to end in this position, but I don't want him necessarily to start. So we do want to set these up here just as classic tweens, just like we've done previously. So I'm just going to double check my layers, make sure everything looks good from what we copied over. And it looks like here I have an extra layer here on my body, so it might be I have an extra piece here that I need to get rid of. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and lock these other layers temporarily. Go back to here and delete that extra head that's floating there. All right, but make sure I'm on that first frame, because otherwise, as you saw, it created a whole nother keyframe there, and that's not what we want. All right, now that I've cleaned that up, I'm good to go ahead and start creating animation here. And all we're going to do is do classic tweens on everything here. So it's similar to what we've done before, so let's just go ahead and do classic tweens. And we're just going to insert those for each one of our layers here. All right, now that those classic tweens are set up, the first thing I want to do is I want to take this character here and every bit of him, and I want to move him over. So I'm just going to make sure we select them, and we can grab our selection tool here to make sure we grab it all. And so that, you notice, selects all of our layers. And I'm just going to go ahead and move him back toward the beginning position of where I'm at. And I can hold down the Shift key if I want to help keep him from sliding up and down. And so I'm going to go ahead and slide him so he starts right over here. And then I want him to end right here, pretty much where this frame of animation is. So you can see we have a little bit of a jump there for that animation. But again, that's perfectly okay. So we can see he's going to run across. So if I were to play this right now, he's going to come across and throw that shuriken. All right, and that looks great. And I could even set this up and say, you know what, maybe I want this first frame of this animation to be even further back. Maybe I want him to throw it from over here. And so I could come over here and say, you know what, I want to grab this character, and I'm going to again hold the Shift key, and I'm just going to move everything back so he has a much longer throw distance. So now we start this from the beginning. You can see he's running and throws it. However, we don't want him to move here at the end, so maybe we want him to stop. So I'm going to grab this character. And again, I want to line him up to right here, so it might take a little bit of trial and error, but we could, of course, can just slide that ninja on over. And so now we have a pretty good animation set up for our walk cycle. Now the actual walk cycle itself is going to be very simple for us to do. All we're going to do is we're going to address each of these layers individually, and we're just simply going to use our free transform tool to go ahead and move these bit by bit. Now, the best way to do this is by inserting additional keyframes for each movement that we want to do. So, for example, if he's running, we want these legs to swing. So I might want this leg to go, let's say, every 5 frames. I'm going to add a new animation or new keyframe in here, signaling that's where I need to go ahead and put in that new movement. So his leg might start here, but then I might have that leg move up to here, because maybe he's sprinting, and then it's going to move back. And it looks like we have it here in the back animation for what we have here. So I might have to adjust that a little bit. I might want this leg actually to be more here to start. So then I'm just going to fix those just by rotating everything back into the appropriate positions. And so if I play this, you'll watch that leg moves really quickly there. Now I'm going to repeat that process for each of my limbs here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video. I want you to do the same thing. Go ahead and add in some keyframes for your arms and legs. And let's just go ahead and make these limbs much more dynamic so that way when this character runs, it looks like a nice natural fluid movement. Alright, so I went ahead and keyframed up my ninja here. You can see that I now have individual keyframes here, every 5 frames of animation. I did this for everything here. And one thing I discovered as I was working this is that my right arm passes behind the leg at one point, so I had to rearrange that layer. And that's something you might discover as you start working on your animation here, is that you may have to rearrange some of your layers. But now when I go ahead and play my animation, you can see that the ninja now runs a little bit before throwing that star. Now I'm looking at this and I say, now that I have that walk animation here, this body animation may not be kind of enough of an exaggeration here for how much I want him to kind of throw himself forward. So I might actually bring the head forward just a little bit more. And maybe also grab that body and rotate that body a little bit more. Just simply because now that this animation is in play with all the other pieces we have here, we had to come through and really update this full animation. So now when we play it, we can see that we have him throwing. And there is our animation. That looks pretty good. All right. Now, his head does move kind of slow by comparison, so I might actually have to, in this case, keyframe that head just a little bit here, or the body even if I want to, and add it so it stops a little bit more before the star does. And of course, that's just ways of coming in and fine-tuning this. And it wouldn't be hard to do. I could just simply come here to the head animation, for example, and I could keyframe that in, and I can simply just move the head forward to match pretty much the position of this one. Or, we can play around with it. But again, this is just the fine-tooth process that you would go through to really make your animation perfect. But again, this looks pretty darn good. And I think we are now ready to move on to the next step, which is going to be to actually put some background in here. So this character is not just existing within a white space.